If you'd like to hear the full episode or any of the scenario archives, be sure to subscribe and click the link in our bio. Also, like and follow the Scenario Radio Show on all of our social media platforms for more real talk with the playlist. Peace.
In the building with us today, we have the co-host of the Full Sport Press, Jeff Easley, and we also have with us the co-host of Black Girls Talk Sports, Rekaya Gibson. So we're going to keep things going as we've been, doing with this discussion so far. I want to just dive right in and talk about our brother, Tiger. Is it Eldrick? That's his name, ain't it? It's Eldrick Tiger Woods. Eldrick Tiger Woods, who won the PGA Championship. That was the third major that he had won that year, and was the first to win 3 majors in a calendar year since Ben Hogan in 1953. Once again, you see, it's like these big leaps. Like, last time somebody did this, it was, back when the first season of I Love Lucy. And he also won the U.S. Open by a record-setting 15 shots, the largest margin of victory since it was done by Tom Morris in 1862. I don't know who Tom Morris is, but I'm almost certain he at least owned a couple of slaves. And so that makes it even that much more historic that Tiger Woods would win something that hadn't been done since 1862. There wasn't, at that time, can you imagine, they wouldn't let a black man be a caddy back then. It was at best they let you maybe keep the grounds,
clean the grounds.
Yeah,
that's it. That's probably it. In some places, that's probably still it with golf courses.
Yeah, it ain't that much far. It's not that much far now. Yeah, there hasn't been the second Tiger Woods as yet to come along. Okay, so I want to start by asking the same question I had asked in the first hour when we were talking about both Venus and Kobe. When you look at Tiger Woods in the year 2000, based on what you thought about Tiger Woods in the year 2000, do you think that he exceeded your expectations, met your expectations, or fell short, or his career ended up falling short of your expectations when you look at the scope of it based on what you thought about him in 2000?
I'll go. With Tiger, and you guys may disagree with me on this, right? Mm-hmm. It's Jordan, it's Michael Jordan, Muhammad Ali, and Tiger Woods. The 3 names with sports that no matter where you are, you can just mention Tiger. You can say Ali, you can say Jordan, and people know exactly what you're talking about, know exactly who you're talking about, what they've accomplished, and things like that. So when it comes to expectations, I think he just blew them out of the water. Like, he made the sport of golf mainstream. That's what he put people in uncomfortable positions because certain people weren't allowed or perceived to enjoy golf like that, and he brought it to the forefront. So I say he blew him out of the water.
Okay.
I say he exceeded them, definitely. He's a great athlete. And I think people also felt it over the years because when he's not playing, people are not watching. And so they love the greatness. They love all his wins. I think he changed the game of golf for me as an individual, just wanting to see it, wanting to learn more about it. And I just, my expectation was just blown out of the water, what he kept doing. And then, later on you find out he's been doing this, his father, yet again, his father presented golf to him. And he's, I guess he started golfing at 2 and so, or 3. And I'm still in awe at what he's accomplished and what he's still able to do, even with injuries and even last year winning the Masters. And I just think there's more to him. He's got a lot more vein left in him.
Yeah. I don't know. I never thought about that until Jeff just said what he said about the fact that he does have a level of recognition and a level of presence in the culture that very few people have. I never thought about it that way because I always just thought he didn't quite meet the expectations. But I have to reframe that. Not because his accomplishments aren't great, but because I always assumed that he could do even more. But I may be heaping more on him than is necessary. Because when I think about it, here's what, and for me, everything always goes back to music. When I think about it, because I always hear people talk about these expectations they have of him. It reminds me, now that I think about it, of the way that people have always talked about Lenny Kravitz. Lenny Kravitz has always made great music. He's always been successful in what he did. But for whatever reason, the media always says, well, it's good, but it's not as good as Prince would do. Or it's like, well, why does he got to be Prince? He's Lenny Kravitz. He's obviously great. Why do you keep, you don't hold any other rock star to these standards, but this black guy comes along and does rock, and all of a sudden he has to be super exceptional, because if you're black and you're doing something that only white people do, you're supposed to take it to the moon.
Exactly.
So yeah, I got to reframe my expectations about this. Never thought about that before.
Mhm.
Also, Rekaya, just so that you know, most things for me will always come back to music at some point, and they will also almost always come back to race at some point.
Okay.
Just
Just roll with it. Just go with it.
yeah, I think it's only fair. I probably should have let you know that before we started, but I'm just saying, yeah, they will eventually almost always come back to those two in some form or fashion. All right, so yeah, I'm going to reframe my expectations about what I think about Tiger Woods and kind of look at it a little bit different, because you both make some great points about that. So Tiger Woods he goes on an incredible run. He dominates golf, and as both of you said, people don't watch if Tiger isn't playing. Just knowing that he's going to be there elevates everything just by sheer virtue of his presence. Then comes 2009. I think it's 2009. Around Thanksgiving, Tiger has a situation with golf clubs that do not involve playing golf, and what equates to essentially a sex scandal, and Tiger Woods and the dissolution of his marriage happens, and things from that point seem to take a turn for the career of Tiger Woods. At least that's how it's often painted. Why did Woods' scandal seem to have such a massive impact on his career? Or did it? Was it the scandal that hasn't had an impact on his career, or was it something that just seemed to happen at the same time his career was at a point of taking a downturn anyway?
I think the scandal
To me,
Sorry, Jeff. Go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead.
no. Please go ahead.
Okay, I think the scandal had an impact on him. May I say, he didn't think he was going to get caught, and it shook him. And I think it shook him for a while. And you saw it on the greens, right? And I think that's how I felt. It may not be true, but that's how I felt. That it did something to his golf game, and it did so where people really thought, we've seen the best of him. I didn't rule him out personally. I knew he still had greatness in him, and I'm so happy. To me, he has one of the greatest redemption stories. After winning the Masters last year, because so many people counted him out. After that, sure, between that time, he had like injuries and like major injuries. He had problems with taking drugs, taking painkillers, and so I think people still, with all that going on, they just didn't see him being great again, and it really diminished his legacy there for a moment. I thought people really wanted to talk about that and not what he had done, in the game of golf. And so I definitely think that was a defining moment for him as well.
No, the thing about it is one of those perfect storm type things, because during the time of the scandal, he started having issues with his swing. Because with the issues with his swing, he's having issues with his back. He was changing coaches. He was changing swing coaches, changing caddies. He was doing a lot. Then, of course, the painkiller issues you guys mentioned. It's kind of a parallel, if you think about it, to what we spoke about in segment 1. We were talking about Kobe. Like, what if Tiger never played golf again and he never won that last Masters? Would this scandal have changed how people perceived him?
Yeah.
Right. because luckily enough for him, he was able to, of course he matured and got older, but those injuries healed for the most part. He tinkered with his game enough, not using his power as much, using more finesse game now, still using power because that's what made him who he was, but who he is, I should say. But winning that last Masters last year, like you said, was redemption. You know what I mean? So it's weird. It's just how all that stuff coincided together with the injuries, the changing the coaches, changing of the people who his support system around him, the scandal, leaving those weird voicemail messages on people's phones, like they don't know it's Tiger, ask them not to answer the phone, stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All that kind of happened at the same time. And then it just took time for someone to build himself back up from that, man. It's tough to watch at the points.
Yeah. Yes.
Do you think that he would have had? Do you think he would have met a more forgiving public had he continued to be winning during that period? If he hadn't had the health issues, because he was considered a villain he was vilified by a lot of people because of his that whole cheating scandal. And do you think that, because they say winning cures all ills? Do you think that had he been dominant during that period of time, that it would have changed people's perception of him as a person?
Absolutely. But it wouldn't have been an easy story to tell, because yes, it's his personal life, and what he did was wrong. You're married, you want to keep the sanctity of marriage together, all that good stuff. But when you're talking about sports, if he's winning, we're not bringing that up. We might mention he's going through some off the court things or off the course things like we do in basketball players and football players. But if they're on the court catching touchdowns or hitting 3-pointers or whatever, we don't really bring that stuff up. So it just happened. Like, to me, it happened at the perfect time in his career to become the biggest story in the world, because he wasn't doing anything on the golf course.
I'm gonna say no, Jeff. No. People, though we love a winner, we love a good comeback, I think people want to still bring up your past. Mm-hmm. And I think even if he was winning this, and it's the same group of people, these mystery people, the same group of people will continue, right? They will continue, to bring up these things, and he could win every game now until eternity, and that will be something people want to bring up. So I don't know. Well, especially in the age of social media, because somebody's always digging, somebody's always reminding, and I think that's just true.
I agree it will be brought up, absolutely. No, I don't want to come off like I'm saying it won't be mentioned, but like, you think even with Kobe, right? When the situation happened with Kobe, after Shaq left, and then he has this case going on in Colorado, he goes and put 81 points on Toronto. We're not bringing Colorado up anymore. It's still there. It still gets talked about, but there's something that supersedes it in the sporting world. Now, Inside Edition, hard copy, all those type of National Enquirer, they're still talking about it. It's still there, but the sports world has kind of evolved on to know what they're doing on the field. That's kind of what I'm trying to say with it.
Yeah, I think the broader culture. I don't think the broader culture would have let him slide, because the level, because of the level of anger that people had in it. People weren't disappointed in him; they were angry at him. This was like people were treating this as if it was like they were treating Mike Vick with the dogs and everything. And I'd be remiss to not mention that I think a lot of it had to do because he was with a very Nordic, very blonde white woman that he cheated on. Not just and I'm making a distinction here. I gotta say it. I'm not saying because that people were hard on him because he cheated on a white woman. I'm saying they were mad at him because he cheated on one of the whitest white women that you could cheat on. It wasn't like a regular, it wasn't a regular white woman. That was the type of white woman that white men kill black men for. I'm sure that Tom Morris, the guy that was the guy that he beat out for 15 strokes, he would have had Tiger killed if he had found out about that back in the old days.
Back in those days.
Yeah. So I think that had something to do with some of the anger and vitriol that he was catching about a lot of it. So I think that would have been there in the general public. But I do think that a lot of the sports fans would have still been like, no, he's a winner. Everybody loves a winner, and I'll still watch the games and stuff like that. But I do think that pressure, because it was a lot of, like, even Nike, the way that the commercials were looking, they had him on there looking like Jimmy Walker with the filter and everything on his face, and he was looking greasy and everything. It was like, they gonna criminalize this dude. They are going to criminalize Tiger Woods for cheating on his wife, and he was wrong for cheating on his wife. Don't get me wrong. I'm not even trying to make this about you can't love white women. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying if you're already infiltrating a white sport, the very least you can do is find a little bit more of a mediocre white woman to cheat on if you're gonna be caught. That's all I'm saying.
And that's kind of what, I agree with that. Let me change that. What I'm saying is with the woman that he cheated on, that's true. But you think it's more so that on top of we accepted you into our sport. This isn't football, this isn't basketball, this isn't hockey, this isn't track, this isn't boxing. This is our thing. We accepted you. Right. We accepted you here, and then this is what you do. And they've always looked for some reason to not have him there anyway. Right. I mean, if you remember that first Masters, he talked about the gentleman, and I forget his name, but made the joke of we're not going to have fried chicken there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so you got to factor that type of stuff in too. I think yes, the woman who he was married to plays a very big role in this, but also the sport that he was playing and his level of acceptance and his level of non-acceptance in that sport as well. It played a big part in it.
This is the Scenario Radio Show. Real talk with a playlist.
That's the scenario.